I always thought my brother, Logan, disliked me, but on my birthday, he proved he despised me. He slid a perfectly wrapped box across the table, smiling like someone who'd been waiting years for this moment. "Go on, Ava," he said loudly, drawing every pair of eyes in the restaurant toward us. "Open your gift. It might explain why you've always been out of place." Inside was a DNA test kit. My throat tightened, but before I could speak, Logan leaned back and added, "Maybe it'll finally show you're another man's mistake." The room froze. My mother went pale. My stepfather looked away. I swallowed everything I wanted to scream and forced myself to breathe. I mailed the test the next morning, not for him, but because something deep inside me whispered that Logan wasn't mocking me. He was warning me. 3 months later, the estate lawyer called an urgent meeting. And suddenly, everything made sense. Growing up in the Carter household meant learning to shrink without anyone telling me to. I was Ava, the quiet daughter who blended into the background like a faded photograph on the wall. Meanwhile, my older brother Logan shone as brightly as the sun my parents revolved around. From the outside, we looked like the perfect suburban family in Denver. 2 kids, a beautiful home, a well-respected father, but on the inside, there was always a crack running through us, one that widened every year. I remember being 8 when that crack first split open. I'd brought home a straight-A report card, clutching it like a treasure. Dad smiled and kissed my forehead, proud in the quiet way he loved me. But Logan? He leaned over my shoulder and scoffed. "Straight A's? That's easy when all you do is read. Try being interesting for once." Mom didn't scold him. She just chuckled and said, "Oh, Logan, be nice to your sister." But her tone wasn't reprimanding, it was indulgent. Like always, by the time I reached high school, I'd learned the routine. Logan would perform, exaggerate, show off, and my mother would applaud like he owned the stage. When I spoke, the room softened, dimmed, quieted, as if my voice wasn't meant to take up air. I tried harder grades, activities, scholarships. Nothing changed. Dad was my only anchor. Steady, undramatic. He never said much, but his eyes told me he saw me. Then he died when I was 19, and everything collapsed. Mom remarried Richard Sawyer, a businessman with polished shoes and polite smiles. He wasn't cruel, just emotionally absent. The kind of man who only invested in relationships that benefited him. For some reason, Logan fascinated him. Maybe because Logan carried himself like someone born to inherit something important. Me? Richard shook my hand at holidays like I was a distant relative he couldn't quite place. So I left for college 2 states away. Built a life in Austin. Quiet mornings, safe routines, a job I was good at. A life that didn't require me to compete for someone's love. But no matter how far I went, that house, that feeling, that unspoken rejection, followed me. When Logan called me another man's mistake on my 32nd birthday, it wasn't the first time he'd tried to strip me down. It was just the first time he had evidence. At least, he thought he did. What I didn't know then, what none of us knew, was that my father had seen the cracks too. He'd seen them forming long before the rest of us noticed, and he had left behind something that would change everything. My 32nd birthday dinner wasn't supposed to feel like a trap, but the moment I stepped into the candlelit Italian restaurant my mother had chosen, something inside me tightened. A familiar heaviness settled in my chest, the same weight I used to feel walking into the Carter living room as a kid, unsure which version of my family I would face. Mom waved me over with a bright, too-practiced smile. "Ava, sweetheart, happy birthday." But her hand trembled when she lifted her wine glass. That was the first red flag. Richard stood to hug me politely. The kind of hug someone gives an acquaintance, not a stepdaughter he's known for over a decade. And then there was Logan. Leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, smirk sharp enough to cut glass. "Look who finally decided to show up," he said. "Birthday girl." I forced a smile. Traffic was bad. He laughed under his breath, like he knew something I didn't. The dinner that didn't feel like a celebration. Menus closed. Orders placed. Wine poured. But despite the soft music and warm lighting, the table felt like a stage, and I was the only one who didn't know my lines. Mom kept glancing at Logan. Richard kept adjusting his cufflinks. And Logan kept watching me with a gleam in his eye. "So, Ava," he said suddenly, "how's the job? Still doing that boring finance stuff?" Mom shot him a warning look. "Logan, what?" he shrugged. I'm just asking. He wasn't. He was testing the waters. I answered calmly. Work is fine. I got promoted last month. Richard nodded politely. Mom widened her smile, but not with pride. More like relief, as if my answer saved her from something. Logan only smirked deeper. Dessert arrives, and so does the real reason we're here. When the waitress placed a small lemon cheesecake in front of me with a lit candle, Mom clapped her hands together. Make a wish, honey. I did. But when I opened my eyes, Logan was already reaching under the table. I got you something, he said, pulling out a small silver-wrapped box. His voice wasn't warm or celebratory. It was theatrical, taunting like he'd rehearsed this moment. Mom stiffened. Richard looked away. And that was when I knew. This dinner wasn't about celebrating me. It was about setting me up. Go on, Logan said, sliding the box across the table. Open it. I hesitated. Something cold crawled up my spine. Mom whispered, Logan, don't. But he ignored her. The box sat there like a dare, a promise, a threat. I picked it out myself, Logan added, voice dripping with satisfaction. It's enlightening. My stomach nodded. I reached for the ribbon, and the moment my fingers touched it, I realized whatever was inside that harmless little box, it wasn't a gift. It was a weapon, and Logan was about to pull the trigger. My hands were steady, but my heartbeat wasn't. The ribbon slid off too easily, like it wanted me to open the box, to see whatever truth had been weaponized and wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a slim, white testing kit. For a second, my brain refused to register it. Then Logan spoke. Surprise, he said, raising his glass. A DNA test. Finally, we can settle the family joke. My chest tightened. What joke? He leaned in, eyes blazing with cruel amusement. The one where you're not really one of us. Mom's fork slipped from her hand. The metallic clatter echoed across the table. Logan, she whispered sharply. That's enough. But Logan wasn't done. He wanted an audience. He wanted witnesses. So, he said, louder now, maybe this'll prove what we've always suspected. He paused, savoring the moment. That you're another man's mistake. It felt like every bone in my body froze at once. The couple sitting at the table behind us stopped mid-conversation. Someone at the bar turned. Even the waitress, halfway to the kitchen, hesitated. Richard cleared his throat. Logan, don't Logan me, he snapped. Everyone knows she doesn't fit. Not in the family photos. Not in Dad's eyes. Not in this family. Mom stood abruptly, voice trembling. Stop it, right now. Her fear was louder than her anger. And that scared me more than Logan's cruelty. I stared at the DNA kit in my hand, the fluorescent restaurant lights reflecting off its smooth plastic. My mind raced. Why did Mom look so terrified? Why was Richard avoiding my eyes? Why did Logan look so confident? Say something, I whispered. No one did, so I forced a breath into my lungs and said quietly, Fine. I'll take it. Logan blinked surprised, if only for a second. Then, his mouth curled. Good. Can't wait to see the results. Mom sank back into her chair, face drained of color. She looked at me, helpless, like someone trying to hold together a dam already cracking. Ava, sweetheart, you don't have to do this, she whispered. Yes, I said, I think I do. And in that moment, a strange calm washed over me. If Logan was right, I wanted to know. If he was wrong, I needed to prove it. But beneath all that was a feeling I couldn't name. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about Logan humiliating me. Maybe this was about a truth the others were terrified of. That night, back home, I placed the DNA kit on my kitchen counter. It glared back at me like a silent dare. My phone buzzed a message from Logan. Sleep well. Big changes coming. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a deep breath, opened the kit, and followed every instruction step by step. I sealed it, labeled it, and set it by the door. As I crawled into bed, a single thought anchored itself in my mind. Logan didn't mock me tonight. He exposed something he wasn't supposed to. And someone else at that table already knew. I mailed the test the next morning. Not to please Logan. Not to prove anything to him. But because the fear in my mother's eyes last night wasn't the fear of a rude comment. It was the fear of exposure. For the next 5 weeks, I tried to live normally. Go to work. Go to the gym. Pretend I didn't jump every time my phone buzzed. But deep down, something was cracking open inside me. 5 weeks later, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, my phone lit up. "Your DNA results are ready." My heart lurched. I closed my office door, sat at my desk, and forced my finger to tap the notification. The page loaded, and the breath left my body. No biological relation detected with the Carter family. Primary genetic match, the Whitlock lineage. Whitlock? I had never heard that name in my life. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then, for the first time in years, I cried quietly, alone. Not because I was shocked, but because a lifetime of subtle rejection suddenly made horrifying sense. A part of me had always known I didn't belong. Now I had proof. I sent the screenshot. My fingers moved before my brain could catch up. I typed one sentence in the family group chat. "Anyone want to explain this?" 3 dots appeared instantly, then vanished, then reappeared. Finally, my mother called. The panic in her voice was immediate. "Ava, sweetheart, listen to me. Please delete that message. You don't understand. So, explain it. This happened a long time ago. Mistakes were made. But your father, your dad, he loved you. Please, Ava, please don't make this worse." "Worse?" I whispered. "My entire life has been a half-truth." She started crying. "But not out of remorse, out of fear. People will find out," she whispered. "Logan will. I don't care what Logan thinks." She went silent. Then she said the quietest sentence I had ever heard. "I always knew this day would come." And hung up. Logan's reply. 10 seconds later, Logan texted me. Just 4 words. "Told you. Now, you know." No apology. No sympathy. Only satisfaction. As if he'd been waiting his entire life for the moment I discovered I was, in fact, not part of the family he guarded so viciously. But the worst part was still coming. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong, more wrong than the DNA results themselves. Mom hadn't been shocked. She had been prepared. And Logan hadn't been taunting me. He had been expecting the results. Why? What did they know that I didn't? I walked into my closet, pulled down an old box of childhood photos, and dug through the dusty albums. Near the bottom, I found it. A photo I had never seen. A young version of my mother, holding a baby that looked exactly like me. Next to her stood a man I didn't recognize. Tall, dark-haired, smiling. A stranger. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, "Forgive me." My hands shook. And in that moment, it hit me. Logan wasn't trying to destroy me. He was trying to erase me, because he knew the truth would put something very valuable in my hands. Something he wanted for himself. The morning after I found the photograph, I barely slept. Every sound in my apartment felt amplified my own heartbeat. The hum of the fridge, the distant traffic. It all blended into one thought. Logan knew. Mom knew. Richard probably knew. Everyone knew. Except me. At 9:14 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it. But something told me to answer. "Hello? Miss Ava Carter?" A firm voice asked. "This is attorney Michael Graves representing the Carter estate." I froze. "The estate?" "Yes," he continued. "I'm calling to inform you of an urgent meeting your presence is required at. Your mother, stepfather, and brother have already been notified." My stomach twisted. "Why?" "About what?" There was a short pause. Then, "Regarding recent developments in your family status, My blood ran cold. "Family status? The DNA results? Is this about being removed from the inheritance?" I asked, voice cracking. "Because, Logan." "Miss Carter," he interrupted gently but firmly, "you should attend the meeting, and if I may strongly suggest, bring legal representation." Legal representation. The words hit me like a punch. "What's going on?" I whispered. "You'll understand when you arrive." Then he hung up. My family's reaction said everything. Not even 5 minutes later, a barrage of notifications flooded my phone. "Mom. Ava. Please don't go. Wait for me to explain. Richard. Let's keep things civil. We can talk before the meeting. Logan." I didn't expect him to text. But he did. "See you there? Ready to finish what you started?" Finish what I started. No. He was finishing what he started. He had a plan, and it didn't include me. I call for backup. I drove straight to the office of Emma Hayes, a top-tier inheritance attorney in Austin. When I handed Emma the photo, the text messages, and the DNA results, she didn't speak for nearly a minute. Then she said, "Ava, you're in the middle of something very calculated." By Logan? Almost certainly. Here's the thing, children born outside the marriage can still inherit if the deceased parent intended them to. Your father may have prepared something, but if the DNA results remove me, Emma shook her head. Not retroactively, and not if your father left protections in place. But if somebody, your brother for instance, has been trying to force changes to the will or manipulate your father in his final months, she slid a legal pad toward me. That would be illegal. My throat tightened. So, Logan might have been pushing Dad? Or worse, she said softly. He might have tried to isolate him, pressure him, convince him you weren't entitled to anything. I swallowed hard. He gave me that DNA test publicly, I whispered. In front of strangers. He wanted everyone to hear. That's because, Emma replied, he already knew the results. The room tilted for a second. Meaning, she continued, he accessed your information unlawfully. Or your mother told him. Either way, the level of confidence he displayed isn't normal. What do I do? Emma folded her hands. First, breathe. Second, attend that meeting. Third, let them talk. People who manipulate usually reveal more than they intend. She leaned forward. And one more thing, your father was not a foolish man. If he suspected betrayal, he may have documented it. All we have to do is find the missing piece. A chill ran down my spine. Logan wasn't just trying to hurt me emotionally. He was trying to erase me legally. Because somewhere in my father's paperwork, somewhere in the shadows of the past, Ava Carter had something Logan desperately wanted, and he was willing to destroy me to get it. 2 days later, I walked into the towering marble building that housed Graves and Whitman Law, my pulse thundering in my ears. Emma walked beside me, steady and composed, radiating the confidence I desperately needed. This isn't a fight you start, she reminded me. It's a fight you finish. We stepped out of the elevator onto the 21st floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, dark wood, cold air conditioning that smelled like money and power. The receptionist led us into conference room B, a long glass table, 12 leather chairs, and an atmosphere so thick with tension it felt like walking into a storm. My mother was already there. She looked wrecked, hair hastily tied back, mascara smudged. She clutched her purse as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. She didn't look at me. Richard sat beside her, jaw clenched, eyes avoiding mine. Logan arrived last. He pushed the door open with a smug energy that made my skin crawl. Expensive suit, slicked back hair, confidence dripping from every step. And, of course, he brought his own attorney, a flashy, billboard-type lawyer named Brad Coleman, known for aggressive estate strategies. Logan dropped into his chair and flashed me a slow, triumphant smile. "Ava," he said, as if greeting an inconvenience. "Didn't think you'd show." I didn't respond. Emma placed a calm hand on my arm and whispered, "Let him talk," Mom whispered. "Oh God, please, not today." But Logan ignored her completely. The lawyer arrives. The door opened again. Attorney Michael Graves entered, carrying a thick folder too thick to be anything but trouble. He moved with the deliberate calm of a man who knew exactly how devastating the documents in his hands were. He stood at the head of the table. "Good morning. We are here today to review the late Thomas Carter's estate instructions, along with an additional file." My mother flinched. Logan leaned forward like a predator who smelled victory. "Let's get on with it. We all know he jerked his chin at me, has no biological connection. Therefore," Graves raised a hand. "Please wait." Mr. Carter anticipated complications regarding paternity, and he left very precise directives. Emma smirked. I felt a glimmer of hope and fear. The will reading begins. Graves opened the folder. "I will start with the will." Logan straightened, ready for the win he'd been chasing. "I, Thomas Andrew Carter, leave my estate consisting of the home, the investment accounts, and all financial assets." Logan smirked. "To my daughter, Ava Caroline Carter." Silence. Then, "What the hell?" Logan shot to his feet. Mom began to cry. Richard closed his eyes as though he had been expecting this. Logan slammed his hands on the table. "She's not his daughter. We have DNA. We have proof. This is invalid." Graves didn't look rattled. Mr. Carter was fully aware of Ava's biological status. That shut Logan up. What? I whispered. Graves continued reading. I have known since Ava was 2 years old that she is not my biological child. I still chose to raise her. I still choose to give her what I built. Biology does not determine loyalty. I covered my mouth with my hand as tears burned behind my eyes. My father knew. He knew all along. And he loved me anyway. Logan pointed an accusing finger at Graves. This is fraud. This is... There is more, Graves said calmly. The secret file. He pulled out a sealed envelope stamped confidential. This file was to be opened only under one condition. Logan scoffed. The DNA test. Which we... No, Graves interrupted. The condition was, if any individual attempted to remove Ava Carter from the estate through coercion, manipulation, or financial pressure. I have said Spaded is not anyone to. Logan froze. The blood drained from his face. My mother sobbed harder. Richard reached for her hand, but she jerked away, ashamed. Graves placed several documents on the table. These are bank statements, emails, and recordings gathered by a private investigator hired by Mr. Carter in the last months of his life. He slid the first paper toward Logan. A $40,000 withdrawal from your father's account, signed by you. While he was hospitalized. Logan's voice cracked. That was a loan, not according to the documents. Next paper, consultations with 3 different estate lawyers, all retained with the intention of altering the will. Next, email correspondence pressuring your father to remove Ava permanently. His face crumbled. My heart cracked open and then hardened in the same breath. Logan hadn't tried to hurt me emotionally. He tried to erase me legally. And my father saw it coming. Logan stood frozen, eyes wide, lips parted as if searching for a lie that could save him. But the evidence lay sprawled across the table like a confession. Graves wasn't done. He opened a smaller, worn envelope. Something about it felt sacred. This, he said, is Mr. Carter's final handwritten statement. He requested it be read only if the condition was met. Logan shook his head violently, eyes blazing. No, you're not reading that. I want a handwriting expert. A judge. Someone who... Logan. Emma's voice cut through the air like a blade. Sit down. He didn't listen, but Richard did. Logan, he said sharply. Enough. Logan swallowed hard and sank back into his chair. His face was a storm fury. Fear, humiliation crashing together. Graves began reading. My father's words. To my daughter, Ava, I know you have carried the weight of silence for most of your life. I know you felt overlooked. I know you questioned your place. But hear this. You have always been mine, not by blood but by choice. My breath caught. Mom pressed trembling fingers to her lips. Graves continued. To Logan, I am aware of your attempts to manipulate your mother, intimidate your sister, and influence my state of mind during my illness. I hoped you would change. I prayed you would choose integrity. Instead, you chose greed. Therefore, if any effort is made to remove Ava from her inheritance, your share will be transferred entirely to her. This is my final decision. Logan's chair screeched as he shot to his feet. No, he wouldn't do that. This is fake. She manipulated him. He jabbed a shaking finger toward me. She's been planning this. His lawyer put a hand on his arm. Logan, stop. There's a no contest clause. You can't challenge. Don't tell me what I can't do, Logan roared. Mom whispered through tears. Logan, please, don't make this worse. He rounded on her, voice cracking. Mom, she doesn't belong to us. She never did. He should have left everything to me. Something inside me snapped. For the first time in 32 years, I didn't shrink. I didn't look away. I didn't make myself small to keep the peace. I stood. Why, Logan? My voice was steady, stronger than I felt. Why did you hate me so much? He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. You took everything, he spat. Dad loved you more. Don't deny it. He looked at you like you were precious. He never looked at me that way. His confession hit the room like a thunderclap. Richard exhaled shakily. Mom covered her face. Logan kept going, unraveling with each word. I worked for everything. I earned everything. And you? His voice broke. You didn't even belong here. And still he loved you more. I swallowed the ache growing in my throat. Maybe he loved me, I said softly, because I didn't treat him like a bank account. His face twisted with rage. You think you're better than me? Let's see how long that lasts. Emma stepped forward. That's enough, she said firmly. Logan Carter, per the terms of the estate, you have forfeited your entire inheritance. All assets, including your portion of the house, accounts, and trust funds, default to Ava. Logan stood there, shaking, breath short, completely undone. This is my family, he whispered, voice hollow. It was supposed to be mine. Graves closed the folder with finality. It was supposed to be earned. The moment everything broke, Mom finally stood, tears streaming down her face. Logan, I tried to warn you. Your father warned you. But you kept pushing. You kept hurting her. You kept hurting all of us. He looked around as if the room itself had betrayed him. You're all choosing her, he whispered. No, I said quietly. We're choosing the truth. And that was it. Logan lowered himself into his chair, defeated. No more shouting. No more fighting. Just silence. The kind that comes when a chapter finally collapses. The meeting ended with the kind of heavy silence that follows a storm. Not peaceful, not calm, but real, raw. Everyone left the room slowly, as if the truth had physically weighed them down. Logan didn't look at me when he walked out. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to say. Mom stayed behind. She didn't speak right away. She just reached for a chair, sat, and let her shoulders drop like she'd been carrying 30 years of secrets and finally set them down. Ava, she whispered, voice shaking. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope one day you'll understand why I was so afraid. I do understand, I said softly, but it still hurt. She nodded, tears falling. I know. Richard approached me next. Ava, your father loved you, he said simply. He made sure you'd be protected. You should be proud of the woman you are. For once, I believed him. The weeks that followed. Lawyers finalized everything. Logan attempted to challenge the evidence, but his own attorney withdrew. The no contest clause locked him out completely. He wasn't arrested. Instead, he faced mandatory repayment of the money he withdrew and financial restrictions placed on him. He disappeared from Denver for a while. Mom tried calling me a few times carefully, hesitantly. We spoke, but the conversations were gentle, limited. We were rebuilding something fragile, brick by brick. But I also realized something. Healing didn't have to look like going back. Sometimes healing meant walking forward. I chose my own peace. 2 months later, I packed my apartment in Denver and moved to a quiet coastal town in Oregon. Not to run away, but to start fresh. A small house with white shutters and a porch that faced the ocean. A job I loved. Working remote. A community that didn't know me as the outsider or the secret or the problem Logan hated. Just Ava. I'd wake up to the sound of waves, drink coffee on my porch, let the salt breeze wash the weight from my lungs. Some mornings, the past stung. Some nights, I cried for the childhood I never fully had. But each day, the ache lessened. The call that closed the chapter. One evening, Emma called. The estate is settled, she said. Everything is officially yours. Logan will have to repay the funds he misused. And he's accepted the terms. I exhaled slowly. Not triumphant, just relieved. Thank you, I told her. For everything. Emma's voice softened. You know, your father would be proud of you. I looked out at the horizon where the sky met the water, glowing orange and pink. I hope so, I whispered, closing words. People think pain comes from being unwanted, but sometimes, the real pain comes from believing you don't deserve to be wanted at all. My father, my real father, the one who chose me, taught me otherwise. And if you're someone who has felt overlooked, dismissed, or overshadowed, you deserve more than that. You deserve truth. You deserve peace. You deserve a life built on love, not secrets. I found mine. And I hope you find yours too.